Welcome to Multiple Offers, a real estate show with competing perspectives. Today we are talking about, is spring really the best time to sell?
Put that coffee down.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
How'd you get the gig? Oh, they were hiring. It was only a 2-week course.
I will sell this house today.
What are you, some kind of real estate agent?
Oh, he's a realtor. There is a difference somehow.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
All right, guys, it is episode 48, and Matt is back.
Welcome back, Matt.
Matt, it was a gong show without you.
It was horrible.
Well, I wouldn't say it was horrible, but it was pandemonium.
Almost just deleted the episode.
All right, everybody, go back and give that one a second try. Should I listen and we'll record like a new episode where I just jump in throughout that episode?
Like future Matt
is
like,
fact-checking.
well, actually, Jer doesn't know what he's talking about here.
Remember we used to do future Matt and Geoff and Jer?
Yeah.
That's when we were bad at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, we needed a lot of...
significantly better, not great.
Yeah, for sure. So what's going on, guys? What have you been up to?
Well, Matt's back.
Thanks for having me back.
That's the most exciting thing in my... Oh, I got a haircut.
You're looking fresh.
Thanks. It's all these videos and YouTubes.
Yeah. I had absolute panic getting out the door this morning. The childcare was late, and I'm already running behind, and right as I go to get out my door, the clicker doesn't work.
Oh, like your garage door remote.
So
trapped.
It wasn't the end of the world, but because I was running late, I didn't want to do the get out, manually open it, take my car out, get back out, close it, come around. I was like, this is going to take too long. So I stole Rachel's clicker.
Nice.
Yeah, and I have to remember to return it because she'll be so pissed.
So mad.
If, she tries to leave one morning and their clicker's just gone from her, what do you ever call it? The dash.
Does she know, or you're just hoping to get away with it?
No, I haven't told her.
So
I'm
you gotta switch them.
So it's a big secret, so don't tell anyone.
What's the plan to fix it? Battery.
Oh, yeah, I think it just ran out of batteries. I don't think it's broken.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, so we got a pretty good show for you guys today. Matt's going to go over some news, and then we're going to discuss the seasons of real estate and whether spring really is the best time. And we got a story and a question for you guys. But before we get into that, why don't we talk news?
I've just been handed an urgent and horrifying news story. And I need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
I got a news flash for you, Walter Cronkite.
I am enlightened.
Do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Hey, Geoff, have you seen this story that came out from CBC that said interest rates might be falling?
Why no, Matt? Why don't you tell me about that story that I've never heard of?
Please tell us more.
Oh, you haven't heard about this one?
So the reason Matt's being funny here is I actually saw this piece of news before Matt. So I probably because he was away, but I mentioned to Matt about this story. Yes, I have seen it.
A couple of people have already mentioned it to me since in the last 2 days.
I definitely saw.
Oh, yeah?
I saw the headline.
Yeah,
everybody saw the headline. Nobody read the story.
The headline is sexy.
Nobody read the story.
No.
Because interest rates aren't going down according to the story.
Interest rates aren't going down, but you clicked the link, and that's all we wanted.
Canadian mortgage rates are falling as bond yields slide lower. This is the headline on CBC News.
So the budget's working. It's already working.
It
just announced it. Interest rates houses are getting more affordable.
So these are projections. These are based on economists and that kind of stuff. They talk to different banks and get different opinions. The general opinion is that with signs that the economy is falling, the bond market is falling. And as we've learned from Stephanie Barrett, the bond market is what's tied to interest rates.
So you're saying the headline could have said interest rates may fall in the next few months?
Yeah.
Or adjust?
Yeah, but they have clear facts that the bond market has fallen. And they say historically that means interest rates will go down. And the trajectory of the way the bond market has fallen suggests historically a recession.
Ooh.
So
the R word.
So that adds all these pieces together to just say, in general, we already know that our economy has been declining. this all suggests and projects that people think that will continue to happen. And the only reason why people think that will continue to happen is that they're not being as strong in the bond market, so it's bringing down the bond market. So it's just a general consumer consensus that the economy should decline.
Is this Canada specific?
Yes.
Depends what the banks are going to do, too. They could take that and say, yeah, okay, but we're happy with where things are at. They don't necessarily have to.
They could be. I mean, the article is quite in-depth that it starts to say things like, traditionally the spring market can be a high volume time of year for real estate transactions. The big banks need to get their share of the business, and they're going to be fighting for that business because we know volume is going to be lower this year than it has in the previous years. They're going to be fighting to get that business by reducing their interest rates.
Right.
So a combination of a number of things could pull down rates. That's all speaking to the fixed rate world. The Bank of Canada hasn't made any announcement that rates are going down. So far, all they've done is raised them over the last 18 months.
The last one was, I think, no change.
Correct, but they haven't reduced the rates.
Yeah, Steph, last episode, Matt, was speculating a bit that the Bank of Canada probably would lower.
Yes.
And if you guys want to listen to that episode, that's episode 37.
47, Geoff.
What did I say?
37.
Oh, I do that with my age sometimes
good
too.
Thing
I was on the treadmill last night and I put 28 in, and then I got sad. But yeah, Steph was talking about it. Basically that's kind of a way to try and fend off a recession too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's why we had low interest rates for the last 10 years.
Right.
Trying to recover from a recession.
Still recovering.
Yeah, just not recovering. I mean, it's 10 years, man.
Still in the process. Something's not working.
That's just called the world at that point. But yeah, I mean, everything points towards that the Bank of Canada should reduce its rates. So everything is pointing to lower interest rates is what it is. But there's a number of factors here, and we don't want to speak too technically, even though I've thrown around a lot of jargon here. But that's what that news story is. And the funny thing is, it's really only coming out from CBC News right now.
Right.
A number of people have mentioned it to me, and they said, I saw that interest rates might be going down. But the hot topic news is more what you guys spoke about last episode with the federal government trying to make these announcements to help with housing affordability.
Right.
That's what seems to be higher on the radar in the news right now. So we'll see if this gains a little more traction as people hope that interest rates go down. But what do we know what happens when interest rates go down? What does it usually do to prices?
Demand
prices
increases.
tend to go up. Yeah.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts.
You decide your own level of involvement.
Well, I guess this is a case where we'll have to agree to disagree.
I don't agree to that.
Neither do I. Wrong. National debt. You're an advocate.
Wrong. With that money, lost one.
Very nice words, but happens to be wrong.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
So let's get into it. Is spring really the best time to sell? Now, where does this idea come from?
Folklore. Mythology.
Real estate.
Leprechauns, and it's the best time to sell in the spring.
It's definitely what seems to be the opinion of people out there. I feel like every evaluation we've done in the past month or two is people saying, well, spring's always the best anyway, right? So we should wait until then.
Yeah, so that's what it comes from, like the HGTV website and Home and Garden magazine.
Well, and there is some truth to it. As far as number of sales and best prices, things do tend to, if we look at the history of Vancouver and Greater Vancouver overall,
there's always a spike in spring.
Yes, there's always a spike
on
in
the
spring.
graph.
That is exactly what I'm trying to say.
But your question is, where does it come from? It doesn't come from the historical spike on the graph. It comes from...
So are we talking chicken or egg?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I had this conversation this morning where someone said to me, it's on your podcast today, and the spring is always the best time to sell. And I said, and he said, is that for buyers or sellers? And that was a great question.
That is a great question.
Because I said, well, no, it's about sellers. The sellers think that it's about spring, so they've been kind of waiting. We just had a sunny weekend this past weekend, and now everybody's feeling a little more inspired, and things are looking a little better. But the buyers have already been there for a month.
Yeah.
They're just waiting for inventory. And that's why it spikes.
Yeah, it's interesting, too, because I don't know if we've talked about this on the show or not before. I think a lot of buyers set New Year's goals to own a home. Like if you're setting goals, I think a very common goal for people who buy homes is this is the year I'm going to do it, or this is the year I'm going to move up. And typically, buyers take 2 to 3 months of looking before they're ready to be like, okay, I've seen enough, I'm ready. And by the springtime, if they haven't found a place, they're really ready.
I think like there's a couple things going on too. Like the weather's nicer.
Yes.
So psychologically, people are coming out of that funk. So even if they've made that plan that this is the year, they're excited about that. But just, I mean, even I feel like, I'm more inclined to fix things around the house this time of year. You just feel like you're kind of getting ready to do things, and everything looks nicer this time of year.
Well, and the people who decided their New Year's resolution was to move, and that involved selling, started to get their act together to prepare their home.
Right.
And that takes time.
Yes.
Like, just because you're a buyer, it takes a buyer time to figure themselves out, but it takes a seller time, put that fresh coat of paint on things and clean things up and do all those things. And let's talk about that a little more this episode, too, of what the final touches should be to get ready to sell in the spring. But they've been doing their work. They just haven't been calling us yet.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, traditionally, and I feel like how long would you say it's been since we've been in traditional, like, say, 3 years? Like a very typical sort of balanced market that follows the inventory swings of
I think it still follows the seasons, but the highs and the lows are getting closer together, if that makes sense. Like this is great radio, but like the giant spikes on the graph, if they started really far apart, it's closer and closer and closer. Do you guys agree with that?
Yes. Yeah, when I first started, there was some very obvious lulls in the summer season.
Yes.
Those have definitely eroded. You still get the Christmas time lull, but some of that is even eroded away, where there's less of a low there. And then we still get our spikes in the spring, but they don't look as dramatic because of that. And we used to get steeper spikes in the fall, but I think because the summer is a little more consistent, we don't get that spike in the fall that makes up for a lower summer.
Yeah, and looking at the stats last year, it looked like we were doing the regular thing. Like there was the spring spike, and then things slowed down in the summer. But then we didn't really get that fall spike. It just kind of stayed.
I think, and for condos, they don't seem to be as affected by the seasonality of the ups and downs. But what can happen is if you're pushing into July, August, a lot of that inventory is already come and gone. You're left with a bit of the scraps, and so people aren't quite ready and put it on their house. And then usually our advice, depending on everyone's situation, would be, let's wait until after Labor Day. But there's just kind of fewer things going on. But I think for detached houses, it certainly affects it a lot more. If people have families and things like that, they might not be thinking real estate.
That makes sense too to me when you say it, because a house is affected by the weather, like how a house shows much more than a condo. Right? If the weather's crummy outside and you're in a high rise, like, maybe your view's not as nice, but it's not like you walk in and you can't picture the beautiful yard that your kids will be running around in.
Or the yard's covered in snow.
No, you get
or it's a soggy mess.
All that curb appeal, you get to show off your patio spaces, whereas with a typical condo, you might have like a 6x6 patio if you're lucky, and it's not much you can really do with it, right?
Well, and people always say to me when they the other thing they say to me when they think the spring market is the best time is they say, or sometimes they think summer is the best time because they feel that families want to move before school.
Yes.
So that's the other folklore and mythology.
And that one is categorically wrong.
That's it. Okay, maybe let's tell them why they're wrong. Moving on. One, let's understand that when you buy a house and you put your offer in, you're not moving in usually for a couple months after.
Right.
So if you're making your decision in July, it's too late.
It's not happening.
You're not moving in before September. So people need to make that decision usually by June. And the other thing is if you've got kids and families and you're doing the summer vacation thing and you're distracted, it's harder to be focused on buying a home in July and August as well.
Yeah, you got to take the kids away. And then when you get back, you got to get the kids ready for school. And it's just,
so they want that
too much.
Purchase decision decided March, April, May. They're quite happy to actually move in June.
Yes.
Sometimes they'll move somewhere else and kind of keep their kids in school or just bail on the last 2 weeks of school or whatever that is to make sure that they're moved in July or August and sorted for school in September. But that's the detached world. And the condos are just very different because without those kids kind of dictating the timing of it, it's more just about their personal lives.
Right.
Right. But you know what? I guess having just opened this with no, that's categorically wrong, is I want to answer the real question in this episode is the spring the best time to sell? And there is a big scenario where that answer absolutely is no.
Okay.
And we just said that the spike is there in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
That's when things spike. So what does that spike represent? It represents sales volume, so there's more moving, and it represents sales price. So prices are at their highest. So it might be the best time to sell, but is it the best time to sell if you've got to go buy and you got to buy in the most competitive market for the 6-month window?
So if somebody's selling something and the market is because sometimes the spring can just be a lull in general. Like if there's new legislation coming that's curbed things, and people just aren't pulling the trigger, or if there's a news story saying prices are going to fall, you might not have that same anticipated spring market. But for the people that the spring is best, if you're just selling, you don't have anything else to go in. You have something already to go into, and you're literally just liquidating that property. All things equal, could be a great time.
Sure. I just don't want people to get this illusion, though. Like when they want to sell their condo, you're going to sell your 2-bedroom condo that's one of 100, and then you want to go buy a family starter house, and that's one of 10.
I'm just describing the situation, which it's a very limited sort of scope of the situation where it would be the perfect time.
Yeah, there's those people, but I just want to emphasize the people.
We can talk about everyone else
who for them it's not the right time, but they think it is. But when there's so many people trying to buy that house, that's why the prices drive up.
Yeah, and this topic is really fun, and I totally want to have this conversation. But the caveat is the best time to sell your home is when you're ready.
Fine,
right? like there are a lot of factors. This should be one that people consider, but there's a lot more going on than just like. We've talked about the extremes and the lows are much less than they used to be. So, I mean, if it comes from like selling in the summertime when you're ready to go and your home will show amazing, or selling in the last week of spring, I think you wait till summer. Now, there's certain ones like don't list your home between Christmas and New Year's Eve. Like you're going to lose a lot of excitement. Probably the last couple weeks of August, you might as well wait into a couple weeks into September. But overall, I've totally forgotten.
When you're ready.
I feel like I finished that, and I was going to come back to what you were talking about. Oh, the condo selling and buying. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to time it perfectly, the perfect way to sell it is like kind of near the end of spring, and then you're buying in the summer when it slows down. But I mean, that's pretty hard to.
It's a bit of a unicorn, though. Trying to time real estate and really like luck out, and you won't know until sort of afterwards. But and then if you throw in the mix of you're looking for a family property like home, detached, or condo or townhouse, there's so many factors there, and whether that right one was even around.
Well, that's the big
settling.
Thing.
Like
it's about inventory, and the reason why the spring does so well is usually because the sellers provide more inventory.
Yes.
And then the buyers feel confident in the decision they're making.
Right.
I've seen enough choices. These are the most choices I'm going to see, so I can make a decision based on this. Versus July, they look at stuff and they go, I'm just not happy with what I'm seeing.
It's funny, though, because on paper, when you say that sounds like it should be a good time to buy. There's way more choices, but there's also way more buyers.
Yeah, so the buyers who do buy in the spring pay more because they pay for what they want because it was the right one.
Right.
And then there is less competition those other times of the year, but there's less competition because the buyers feel less confident that they're seeing the right thing. And when it's time to move, like you said, Geoff, you do it when it's right for you, and when it's right for you usually has a lot to do with finding the right home to buy.
I think that's the number one stress, especially for not first-time buyers, because first-time buyers can get in whenever they want.
Yeah.
But somebody like downsizers, if you've been in a home for 20 years and you're going to a condo, I think one of the biggest stress downsizers feel is I'm going to sell my house, and then I'm going to have 3 months till my completion date, and I'm not going to find something that I can see myself living in.
Yeah, or you wait till the right place to buy comes along and you've picked that one and you've fallen in love with it, and now you must sell your house.
And you inevitably sell for less.
So those are all the tricky dynamics, lining everything up, making it perfect. But, I mean, we're the professionals. We've seen this. If somebody really asked us, when is the best time? I said to you, Geoff, you're going to sell your townhouse and you're going to buy a house. And I'm giving you a 16-month window to work with.
I have 16 months.
Roughly.
To get it all done?
To decide. You could put it on the market 2 months from now or a month from now.
Yeah.
Or you can time it exactly what it is you want to do. Like, when would you do it? If you really had the choice, when would you do it? Would you want to be in the mix in the spring when it's at its most competitive to try to buy that house? Or would you look at it through a different lens and take a compromise where you know you'll probably sell your townhouse for less money, but something else will work better on the purchase?
In this scenario, do I have to buy and sell at the same time?
Yes. You're buying a
Same
house for your
market.
family.
Yeah. What do you think, Jer? I'm processing Matt's comment.
I think, we're having these conversations, daily with people that are trying to figure out, a huge part of what we do is just, sales. It's trying to create plans that work, and there's not necessarily a perfect plan, but there's different levels of risk that you're trying to calculate. And one of the questions you want to know is how rare is that product? Mm-hmm. If what they're looking for is not really super available, or how liquid are they to make that move if somebody's downsizing, and can you, if you just wait for that product, can you do that? And can we sell your house? Is it too high end that it's a 6-month process?
Jer's bringing up an excellent point, because my last purchase was a very rare product in New West. We're all townhouse owners. We all know how hard it is to find a great townhouse in New West. And I sold and rented.
Right.
For a while, because I knew they existed, and I even knew which complex I want. Like, the complex I bought in was the complex I was waiting for one in.
Yeah, you had 3 choices.
Yeah, because I wanted a corner unit. But I don't think I could have done the normal thing where I sold the condo and then it didn't. From the time I sold the condo, there wasn't something that came up in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, so you decided the time was right there.
Yeah.
I guess I'll answer my own question, because I have sort of...
Matt already had an answer.
Well, because I have thought about it. I mean...
Right.
Now, this applies to us, and of course, you do have to do it when the time is right for you. It's based on when you're ready and when your family circumstances have changed. And a lot of it tends to happen after Christmas, too, because as a family person, I notice my house gets overrun with, stuff.
Yes.
It's kind of it's time for a change. But if it was really just the strategy of it, I would probably want to sell in October or November and be buying November, December. Like in a perfect world, I would love to.
You like the gamble?
I'd love to go and sneak a bit of a deal.
Yeah,
coming up to the end of the year when somebody really wants to sell,
and you don't mind, you're accepting. Okay, I'm going to take a little hit. It's not the absolute best time to sell, but I can make that and more back on the buy.
I'll make up more on the purchase.
This probably matters whether you're upsizing or downsizing too. Because if you give a little haircut on your place and get a big haircut on what you're moving into, that's great. Downsizers, Matt's scenario might not work as well, because you're probably having a bigger hit on the higher end stuff.
You'll take a heavier hit on your house probably,
yeah.
Well, that's something to talk about too, is moving up and timing the markets, whether if an adjustment has just happened, is there a ton of inventory, because now you might... Yeah, exactly. We have that conversation with people saying okay, so we're going to sell your condo. You're going to lose 10% or so, but houses are sitting right now 15% down,
right,
and there's a ton available. So okay, we didn't get you the exact price that your neighbor got right at the peak 6 months ago, but look what we're about to save you on this house. So that's, it's an important aspect of this.
So that kind of brings us to more this year. We've talked about the seasonality, the traditional sort of peaks and valleys of spring, but this year might be a little different. We talked about it in the news segment. The economy is down. Consumer confidence is low. What do we think is projecting? How should people plan for this spring? Because really, that's why people are listening.
I think if we're making a move this spring, the safer bet is to sell sooner rather than later, because prices don't look like they're going up. If anything, they're going to go down. And they might have leveled off. I mean, activity feels like it's picking up, but it's way too early to call it yet.
If the rates change, we could see a bump in activity.
If the rates change, we could see a bump.
If that actually happens.
But I think when we're talking about timing things too, in a falling market, you're better to sell sooner and even take a little longer to buy.
As prices continue to fall.
Because you're working with the market, right? That big haircut, little cut haircut is easier to accomplish if you're kind of going with the flow of the market. And right now it looks like the market's still in a correction. It seems to have slowed down, for sure.
Yeah, but the trajectory is in more of a very slight downward move than up.
And even if there is a blip, it'll be temporary.
Yeah, but the risk, of course, is that if you sell first and then the market starts to go in an upward trend, the product you want to buy now costs more money, so you're further behind. And when things are really unpredictable like this, I would say the most important thing is once you're ready is to line up the purchase and the sale just as close together as you can.
That's the safest way, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to roll the dice, put them really far apart and just cross your fingers that the market continues to correct.
So I tend to always land in the world of with my clients, the product I'm buying is most important, like when you bought your townhouse.
Yes.
Right? So I found the right one. I know what the right one is. Now, how do I make that happen? To be able to buy the right one and sell my current place, your current place is probably a starter home, or it's a 2-bedroom condo, or it's a 1-bedroom condo, something that's got a lot of competition in the marketplace.
Yeah.
So what do you have to do? Well, the only way to make that gap tight is to sell your home at a really competitive price, competitive being a little bit low.
What I love about that is it's beginning with the end in mind, right? Like a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get a good price. I want to do this. I want to do that. At the end of the day, does the price you're getting allow you to accomplish your goal? And I think a lot of times people lose sight of, I had a home for sale right as the market was falling last year, and they ended up not selling because they didn't want to take a loss. Like, I can't take a loss. But what they would have been buying if they'd bought that a couple of years ago, it all would have washed out, right? Like, they could do their goal, but they kind of lost sight of the end goal of, we're not happy.
So we're coming back for our video viewers. You won't hear this on the recorded podcast, but we lost some of our video feed. And Geoff, we had a pretty good...
I'm still hot and bothered.
We had a pretty good disagreement. So if you're watching the video part, you've got to go and get the podcast.
Watch Matt and Geoff fight.
So there's like a 12-minute gap. If you're wondering why this is just sort of choppy and jumpy, that's it. So we're going to go into the story time segment now. And you can enjoy that on the recording.
You won't get the visual of the fisticuffs, but you'll definitely be privy to it.
I think it probably sounds more intense on audio because in person we're not really looking like
you're just mean mugging each other from across the table.
My nose still hurts from when Matt punched me, but
all right, now it's time for story time. Thanks for watching.
It's story time with Jer.
Great story. Compelling and rich.
It's not always my story?
No, it's not always your story. What if Matt has an awesome story to tell?
Well, he can tell it to me or write it down and I will paraphrase.
This is Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
So have you guys heard Mike's crazy second showing story yet?
No. Is this story time with Mike?
This is, so a friend of the show, Mike Sheldrake, a friend of all of ours and
known
a fellow
in the biz
realtor.
as Michael Sheldrake.
Oh, yeah, Michael.
Oh, that's true. See, I've known him since elementary school, so he's Mike to me.
He won't listen to this
but
anyway.
He gave me special permission to call him Mike. He doesn't put up with it from other people. So he had a second showing where the you know how a lot of times when you're showing homes and a first-time buyer, this happens with especially, he's like, oh, I want to come back, but I want to bring my parents.
Yeah.
So he kind of got that, except I want to come back and I want to bring 6 of my friends.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of people. And they show up in this little condo, and they all pile in, and they just make themselves at home. Like, Mike's walking around trying to do a showing, and then he hears the microwave going.
Come on.
Oh, yeah. He walks into the kitchen, and one of them's, like, making popcorn. And then they, like, all sit down around the table and start discussing the pros and cons while they're all having their lunch and eating. And Mike's like, and they...
Holy.
Now, he's been showing this woman properties for months and months and months. And all of these 6 people who have read that the market isn't good are like, well, I think you should offer $80,000 below asking price, and like all of this advice.
Oh, so she brought 5 realtors with her.
Yeah.
Jeez. Was there a hidden camera? Was it like a...
Oh, yeah, you'd think that, right? Like, is he getting punked? Yeah, so...
That's stressful.
That's never happened to me.
That's a lot of
I've had, dad shows up. Like, we talked about that on our inspection episode with David Fairbairn.
Yep.
Yeah. This is a second showing, though. This isn't like we're coming back for measurements. We've already kind of bought the place, but it's not ours yet.
They have not written an offer.
Yeah, that person needs to kind of choose their BFF.
You get one advisor.
Well, I've had many people say, I want to bring a friend.
Yep, that happens
not
for
just,
sure.
Not just dad or mom,
Yeah.
but I've got a close friend who I trust, and I need a second opinion. I'm on my own here.
Yeah.
I want to bring someone with me. Sure, of course.
Yeah.
Bringing 5 or 6 is... Now, and I do often ask, it's like, who are you bringing, right? And I don't try to find out too much, but if somebody told me they're bringing 4 or 5 people, I would warn them. Like, that's just too many voices.
I want to know if the person who decided to microwave popcorn knew that she was being inappropriate and it was like a power move.
I think it was.
Or because, like, how do you just go into somebody's house who's taken all this time to set it up and make it nice and be like, I'm just going to eat a snack?
Or they're just completely like socially awkward and just like, this is what
bringing popcorn is a planned power move.
Yeah, they had to have the microwave. You're right. Like, I never even thought about that. Before they got there, they had to decide, because I don't just have microwave popcorn on me at all times.
They went to the store, they bought it.
This reminds me of a conversation I had with my sister. So my sister is looking to buy, my brother's looking to buy, and they're both married, right? So I'm on a speakerphone call once with my sister and her husband talking about a place they want to buy, but they're at dinner with my brother and his wife, and there's all 4 of them. And I'm getting this whole team play, and so they're talking about this place that they like, and they're like, well, we're going to go back to the open house to see it for a second time before we make an offer, and we should like sabotage the open house. And they all start coming up with these ideas, right? Of like, well, I'm going to go over here and do this, and then you're going to go to that corner of the house and do this, and I'm going to do this. And I feel like that's what's happening here. We're like, okay, all of us are going to go, and I'm going to look into this, and you're going to look into that, and you're going to look at that, and we're all going to look out for Steve.
And Popcorn Guy was just the microwave tester, you think?
Well, that's very important, right?
That was the psychological game. Like, they're playing games.
I think so.
But this was at an open... You're talking about like just messing around at an open house.
Well, Matt's talking about
they
an
were,
open.
but it's the fact that you get into a large group of people talking about, I want to support my friend, my person I'm close to. How can I contribute? I got something I can do. What can you do? What can you do?
I'm sure that their intentions were protect my friend.
Yeah.
Like, they were coming from a good place. I'm sure of it. But I don't know if, like, maybe they didn't trust, like, the realtor. Like, they're trying to...
Well, they don't know the realtor. And they're just like, I want to look out for my friend. And there's some things I know, so I want to come and I want to tell you. You asked me to come and give you my advice.
I'd better bring value.
Yeah.
And popcorn.
So what can I do in this situation, right? Oh, my gosh.
Mike attracts all the crazies, though. He showed me an offer one time that he got, which was subject to, like, psychic approval. Like, they needed to bring... They had all these specific clauses, like a psychic or shaman, or they had like 6 different things that it was allowed to be, but basically it was like, we need to test the mojo of this home.
That person needs to pick a religion.
Well, maybe it's just a water cooler clause, like they or boilerplate is the word I'm looking for. Like, they've just got that, so it covers all religions. You don't want to discriminate.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. I haven't seen that in the web forms.
Great story. Thanks, Geoff.
Yeah, so many questions.
And Michael.
Let's do question of the week.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
How's that working out for you? What? Being clever?
Who knows where thoughts come from? They just appear.
You're listening to Multiple Offers, a real estate show.
Actually, speaking of working with my sister...
Is this a sister question?
Well, it applies to their transaction. I probably shouldn't have mentioned that part, but that's okay. They're in they've been in the same rental for a while, and they sign a 1-year lease every year. They renew their 1-year lease, but they knew that they were going to want to move.
Yeah.
So they put in a clause for themselves that allows them to give 2 months notice, and at any time they can terminate that lease early.
Perfect.
So that's great. It gives them an out clause. Pretty easy to work with on almost every purchase you could come across. Even if you have to move in a month.
And they don't have to give any reasons, just, hey, if we give you 2 months,
yep,
this contract terminates.
Yep, because they're upfront. They said, we are looking to buy a place. Right? So
great.
It's a great agreement. I was like, this is easy to work with. I'm so glad that you have this. Mm-hmm. This is really good. And then we find a house that they like, and it's an estate sale. So I get in touch with the agent, and I said, hey, has the probate been completed for this estate?
I'm getting stressed and I don't even know what happened yet.
And the answer is no.
Okay.
Right? So it's like, no. So for listeners, I'm not going to give you the long version, but if there's an estate, it has to go through probate registration that allows the estate to effectively be like a closed case. And if it hasn't registered, you can't actually transfer title. It has to wait until the court sort of approved the closure of the estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be 2, 3, 4 months, sometimes 6 months. I asked around the office about something yesterday, and somebody said, we had one that took 2 years. Be careful. Because the reason why
that might have been mine.
No, it wasn't yours. It was somebody else. Well, maybe, but they said
I might have been on the other end.
The
of that
secret
one.
family.
That might have been mine.
Okay. So the estate was looking to close the case, and they found out that there was sort of another side of the family that the family on the one side didn't know about. So then there was this whole complication with it. So you have no guarantees when the estate the probate is closed and registered.
Yeah, if everything goes smoothly, it's great. But if somebody shows up and contests the will,
So the question is, when do you give notice as a tenant? You get an accepted offer. Probate might happen in 2 to 3 months, but it might be 6 months, and you have to give 2 months notice. The problem is, once probate registers, you're expected to complete and take possession within a couple of weeks.
Can you write in that the completion date can be changed up to 1 month or 2 months after being given notice? Like the buyer has the right
everything's
to...
an option.
Yeah.
I mean, you could propose that. Is that something you think a seller would go for? Wait through 3 months for probate, and then you have to wait another 1 to 2 months for the funds.
Was there competition?
In this situation, there is.
Yeah, that's tough. Because if you're on your own and you've got a bit of leverage and you're worried about that, I would say something to try would be to put in some sort of clause like the buyer reserves the right to change the completion date to 2 months from when probate registers. Just put something in to protect yourself so that...
Save them some rent.
Yeah, save you some rent. Yeah, that's a hard one. So...
I say just don't. If in that situation,
can you move in with your realtor?
Well, that might happen.
Is it a long completion date to begin with?
No, they're trying to keep it all pretty tight. The house is vacant. They want it to be pretty quick. They say it should be pretty quick. They say, well, the lawyer said that the probate offices are pretty quick right now. We're looking at 2 to 3 months.
I would probably try a clause that says, if the probate hasn't completed by this date, the contract will extend, or completion date will extend to X amount of time.
So, as they say in the pre-sales world, an outside date.
Yes.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. Did you have anything?
I would just say wait and see. There's too many variables there with the seller condition for subject to probate, especially in competition. I
agree with Jer. I wouldn't give notice yet. Like if I couldn't get some sort of clause that protected me, I wouldn't.
Just don't give the notice. Don't be stuck homeless, right?
Yeah.
Take the risk of paying an extra month or two of rent versus being stuck without a home.
I mean, if you've been a long-term tenant, maybe talk to your landlord. If you've got a good relationship with your landlord, a lot of times, I mean, if he was willing to put in a 2-month clause, you can give notice whenever, probably hasn't found anybody yet. Might be okay as long as you're keeping them in the loop.
Yeah, they're not looking for anyone because my sister could be there for another year potentially. Right?
Yeah.
So they won't look until notice is given, but who knows? So that might be the way it goes. I did hear another option when I was asking around for this, and this is sort of more of an American style because we don't hear the term escrow much in Canadian real estate.
No.
But buy it in escrow, which means you pay the funds, you have access to the property, but you're technically not the owner.
Right.
And that might be another 2-3 months until probate registers. So there's sort of a window there where you've paid. Mm-hmm. So you've paid for the right to have the home, but you don't get title until probate registers.
And maybe explain to our listeners what the advantage is for the buyer in that situation.
Huge advantage. If you're not in competition and you can get that to happen, you can. Well, if you're renting, you can give your notice depending on the timeline, and it depends on when probate was started. If they're behind the 8 ball, but no, you get to live in the house.
Yeah, you know exactly when you're moving in. Certainty.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
That's what we like. That's our show.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. We've already mentioned it once, but if you want to get a hold of Matt or Jer, you can find them at thenewwestguys.com. If you want to get a hold of me, Geoff, I'm at realestatennewwest.com. And if you've got any questions or feedback for the show, you can send those to feedback at morealestateshow.com. I think that's it.
Sounds good.
I've been asked by someone who I did business with once before, so they know me professionally.
You did a business.
I did a business. Whatever, Geoff. Trying to set this up. Okay. So they know me professionally, and they said, I think you'd be a really good fit. We're looking for a new member for our board of directors. I think we should talk about you sitting on this board of directors, which I've never considered sort of as something to do. And then I went and looked at the organization. It's a nonprofit.
Okay.
And everybody else on the board of directors has these very specific professional designations. You know, a lawyer in the field that applies to this, and an accountant, and somebody who has 15 years experience. And this is a nonprofit society that deals with, mental health and the housing side of it. So there's a sort of a combination of housing and mental health and some of these things, and family services and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this person's worked in family services or mental health services or whatever for 15 years, and this person's a lawyer, and this person's an accountant, which is good for watching the numbers and all this stuff. And then she says, I think you'd be a good fit. And I'm just sort of like, I like the idea of helping with something and being on a board. I've never really considered it, and I wonder where our professional designations land. And like, what do we bring? What do I bring? I don't know if I'm really helping. I mean,
they deal with housing.
Yeah, but it's rental housing. It's
they're not purchasing.
No,
houses.
They're not purchasing. They're finding housing for these people in hard times, right?
Did they mention that there was an element that they thought you'd be helpful
She
for,
just
or?
said, I think you would be a good fit. We should talk about this. And I said, okay, I'll talk to you about it. But my general perception right now is that I don't know if I can bring enough value.
I feel like you must have been very stunned, because normally I think that you're really good with follow-up questions. And I feel like the natural follow-up question was like, cool, how do you see that? Like,
I was on vacation.
There was, vacation, Matt.
I said, can I talk to you about it next week?
So you're going to have a conversation.
We'll talk about it this coming week, yeah. But
I think you got to ask them what they're like.
Yeah,
how do they see your role?
Yeah, what do you see me? How do you see me fitting in?
What's the time commitment?
What's my superpower in this board? Like, if I'm in this league.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of the work that we do as professionals. I think through this episode we've shown that there's a lot that we provide to people in helping guide them through a really tough time in their lives. But we provide a little bit of we're flexible. Like, we just kind of find solutions sort of out here and out there, and we don't have a specific formula to follow. We hear what it is that you need, and we find a path that achieves your objectives. But we don't have this specific professional training.
Maybe they need a problem solver.
I feel like there are two things you, Matt Brabbins, bring to the like you're an expert in, and there's probably lots more, but just from a professional standpoint. So you're an expert at the home buying process and selling, which to me doesn't make a whole lot of, like, from what you're saying, if they're dealing with rental housing, you're not an expert in rental housing. So, the only other thing I could see is you do have a lot of marketing knowledge. So I don't know if there's anything in that skill set that you bring to the table. Also, I don't know who the other people are on the board.
They could be mistaken too. I mean, you have to just ask. They might think you. I mean, we deal with Residential Tenancy Act all the time with regards to selling properties with tenants and things like that. But you can't. They may think that you could actually provide insights for that, and you wouldn't probably be the best person for that.
You'll totally know how to help them deal with the tenants while they're selling the properties.
Yeah, so I want to bring value if I'm sitting on the board and I'm voting on things. And
is it a New West specific thing?
No.
I'm really struggling here because, I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's just the fact that you're a part of the community and that you're.
Yeah, I think it's based in New West, but it serves the Lower Mainland.
Do you think they need some facts checked?
That might be it.
They just know that you're quite thorough and you want to.
I mean, really, it sounds so broad, and this is what was sort of stresses me out about it. But I feel like a lot of the value we bring is that you bring us a weird situation, and we have the ability to just go and find ways of navigating it and finding a solution that achieves the goals. And that is broad. Now that is incredibly valuable to our clients. We make things smooth when it could go really poorly.
But we're specialists.
Yeah, and you, like these people would have to bring me a situation and be like, hey, okay, these are the 3 options that we have, or the 4 options that would usually fit the mold, the playbook for how this works. My skill would be like, well, take a little bit from option 1, take a little bit from option 3, and then I want to add in a little bit of a 5th option here and merge it all together. And I think this is a really good way that this might work. I'm getting creative.
I would say you have negotiating skills too, but they've got a lawyer.
Yeah, I'm not there to negotiate. On a board of directors, you're just voting on strategic direction.
Right.
You're helping guide this company. They have day-to-day employees who do everything. You just vote on it to say, yes, invest your time and energy in this area and that area.
Are they lobbying you? Like, do they just need an extra vote? They're like, okay, we can really put pressure on Matt to make the calls.
We could buy him with a steak dinner.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my dilemma, and I don't really know what it is, but I was really curious to hear how you thought our professional designations line up with this stuff.
Is it something that gets you fired up?
No, I'm a bit
board of
conflicted
directing.
Too,
if it was me personally, if somebody asked me to be on a board and it was a cause or something, like if the MS Society asked me to be on a board, I'd try to get on, even if I was like, oh man, I don't have any skills for this. I'd still be like, I want to be a part of this. But,
the platform here is not something that I am sort of deeply connected to and have ever made an effort to try to assist with in society. So it feels a bit disingenuous. I don't know. So I'm flattered to have been asked.
Yeah,
but I don't really feel like I'm a good fit.
If you get an answer of what they're looking for, please report back.
I was going to say maybe next week. Tune in next week.
Yeah, I'd like to know what they're picturing.
Part 2.
Yeah.